Well, it is 6:30. Time to get our meeting started. We appreciate all y'all coming and being here tonight. It's good to see you. We'll begin our time together tonight with invocation. I'll ask Lynn Southern if she will to lead us.
Let's go, prayer. Our Father, how we just thank you tonight that we can come together as a community to take care of business here in Summerfield. We thank you for everything that you've done for us today, Lord, for this beautiful day. I pray that you will guide our council, our mayor, all the council members and staff as we go through our meeting. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Now for the Pledge of Allegiance, we have several members from Troop 103. We're going to ask them if they'll come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Now we'll have our introductions.
William Hill, Town Attorney.
Valerie Robinson, Stonerbrook. Diane Laughlin. Elizabeth McClellan. Dina Barr.
Tim Sessoms.
Mike Adams.
Alicia Flowers.
Scott Whitaker, Town Manager.
Katrina Witt, Finance Officer. Julie Reed, Interim Town Planner.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is number 4, the consent agenda. If you all want to be looking over that for a couple minutes to see if you want to discuss it or if we have a motion to approve, I'll give you a second to do that. And while they're doing that, just to let everyone know, we have 3 opportunities tonight for public comments. If you would just like to share public comments, that'll be the first opportunity, and you have an opportunity to sign up for that back there. Then secondly, there is an opportunity to sign up to talk about the budget. If you have input on the budget that came out hot off the presses first of last week, there's be an opportunity to sign up and address that. And then thirdly, we'll have a public hearing on the rezoning. And if you'd like to sign up to talk on that, everyone will have 5 minutes to discuss it. We just ask you, as always, to come up, give us your name, your address before you speak. Okay. Do we have a motion or discussion on the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as outlined.
I have a question on the financial report, and I'm not finished reading the trails minutes that we just got. There's an expense here for $1,200 and change for a repair for a real mower. Is that right?
Right.
Did you just buy that mower recently?
We bought that. We bought that last summer, and it was budgeted expense. And we bought it used after doing a lot of research and realizing how expensive they were. And we didn't do any specific maintenance on it then. We planned for maintenance this year and budgeted for it, and that was the regular planned maintenance.
It's a real mower.
It's a real expense, is what it is. Okay.
Okay. Would you like to restate your motion?
I would move with a motion that we accept the consent agenda as outlined.
Motion by Mr. Adams.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Barnes. All in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. Announcements. Any announcements from anyone?
I had one announcement. I just wanted to let people know that Pastor Bowden, he had passed away in February, and he served in Summerfield as the senior pastor of Mount Bethel Church here for 6 years. And so if anyone knew him and would like to give a gift in memoriam to him, there's been a fund set up for his wife, the Susan C. Bowden special account at the State Employees Credit Union on New Garden Road. And I know his widow and 2 daughters that are high school age would benefit greatly from that. Thank you.
That's a great cause, too. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Any other announcements?
I wanted to announce the spring cleanup that the county's having, somewhat similar to our summer cycle events. It's Saturday, April the 12th. It's 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and this is the one they have in Greensboro. It's Beach Street, parking lot across from the Coliseum. And they've added mattresses and box springs this year, and there's no charge if you have those that you would like to take, and I just wanted to pass that along.
I think they're taking hazardous waste too.
Probably their normal, yes, their normal list, plus they added sometime last year this mattress and box spring.
Here's information on the table back here, and on the town website.
Thank you, Valerie. Any other announcements?
I could just say that the prison farm is having their sale of their plants now. I've got a press release. I don't think I thought to send it to town hall, but they do have those sales out at the prison farm that they are doing annually, and that started on, I think, April 1st, if anybody's interested in that. There's information on the sheriff's website.
Thank you. Good pricing on some plants. Any other announcements? Okay, if not, we'll move ahead to public comments. Dwayne Crawford.
Dwayne Crawford, Urban 6 NC Highway 150 West. I was reading the agenda at home and I've seen that we talked about the water initiative, and I want to be part of that, so I went ahead and filled out my application. And so the reason I'd like to be on there, to be a citizen's advocate for the preservation, protection of water supply, to apply my skills and analysis expertise to the problems of Summerfield water. I have read countless USGS, Diener, hydrologic assessments, surveys, studies. We're on monitoring wells that are in Guilford County. This is stuff I've had for years. This is something near and dear to me, and I'd like to be on this committee, so. I'd like to be a part of that, and I'm going to go ahead and submit my application. Another thing I'd like to bring your attention to on this fire safety thing. We read on the site, we're talking about 11,000 citizens in Summerfield, and that's an important thing to consider. You can just slide these down both ways. This is, I did this a month or two back. Actually, I did back in January, February, whenever this first came up. I went and did reading on the ISO insurance, whatever site. This is a document I just read on the way to begin today. And they got this really complicated formula. If you look at the first page, it talks about needed fire flow, talks about occupancy and exposure to building constructions. I mean, it's a really complicated thing, and they've got pages after pages to try to understand the formula. But to skip over to page 24, which I gave you as a second page, other considerations, they actually have a very simple formula for 1 and 2 family dwellings not exceeding 2 stories in height. They just give you what the needed fire flow is. You don't need to go through the formula. Use it in the document. So I can analyze data like this and toss it out there for your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Dwayne. So you have one more copy? I didn't get a copy.
Of
the.
Well, you can take it now.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct on that one. There's actually more extensive. If you want to see the more extensive formulas.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Cherry Pickett.
Good evening, everyone. Cherry Pickett, 7804 Robinson Road. I had something all written out, but I want to say I forgot it at home. I will just get into what the main thought was. On our website, I do like the new look. I'm not sure who did that, but I just wanted to let you know that. And that I was reading on the homepage, and it talks about Summerfield respecting the past. And I agree with that, and to me that means that we remember and recognize the events and the people, and we honor the people in the events and the history of Summerfield. I do like to see the buildings, older buildings redone, because when I look at it, it makes me wonder what life would have been like back then. I feel really blessed to be here in Summerfield. We have space for our children as they have grown up. We're able to play in the woods behind our house, and now our grandchildren are able to do that. I come here every month as much as possible, and stand here to express my opinions and my thoughts when I would really much rather be at home hiding out and not staying out here in front of everyone. But the reason I do come is because I value personal freedoms. I really want, and I really believe that most people make good, sound, responsible decisions, and that they should be able to live their lives the way that they see best. So I guess that's why I come here, because I want to express that. And I also would like to ask you to be careful and use our town money wisely, too. I know you've heard that a lot, and mostly we do. I wanted to ask you if you could make a decision to do the easements first before we spend gazillions of dollars doing the design. And the reason is because I feel like that if we spend all this money for a design first, then we might go ahead and feel obligated to go ahead and build the trail, even if the homeowners really don't want that close to their home. That was the main point I wanted to make tonight. And I wanted to thank you for listening to us and giving us the opportunity to come up here and speak. I know you have to make tough decisions sometimes, and then those decisions are out for everybody to scrutinize, but I do appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Pickett. It's good to see our County Commissioner Jeff Phillips here tonight. We'll ask him if he will come up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and all the ladies and gentlemen of the Summerfield Town Council. Is it okay if I stand here? Is it inappropriate if I
Sure.
stand here so I can address you as well? I came bearing gifts, just a few, and I'll leave those back here, but I just, as you spoke of a little bit ago, Tim, we're in the throes of the county of the budget planning process as well, and as many of you may know, I chair the budget committee. It's nearly $600 million in last year. Some of you may have heard me speak about the fact that we reduced spending. For the first time in a long, long time, we cut the tax rate for the county, first time in a long time. And we increased education funding for the first time in 5 years. And in addition to that, an unprecedented debt level in Guilford County we currently experience remains a significant challenge, nearly $1 billion with a B. That's a real, again, mountain for us. It continues to be a challenge, and we're going to address that very aggressively in the coming years. Those successes have been made in a bipartisan fashion, and I think that's a really important point to be made. When we adopted that budget last year, I was very proud of the fact that we adopted it 8-1. That is, I'm a Republican, but 5-4 majority for the first time in about 15 years in Guilford County. However, 8 of us voted for that budget. That included 3 Democrats, only 1 opposed. And that's a real crowning achievement. If you've watched much, at least in my view, if you've watched much about Guilford County in the last, 20 years, you may have called it some of the things that went on and how it went on in terms of how they carried on the business on your behalf. You might have said dysfunctional or out of touch. I'm not disrespectful. A lot of those types of things, and I didn't disagree. But we've changed that. We've, I think, done in many ways a remarkable job to change direction in Guilford County and to accomplish much in a very, very short period of time. Still a lot more to do. But I'd like to take those kinds of attributes, those kinds of accomplishments, those kinds of values and principles to Washington, D.C. on your behalf. And as you may know, I'm running for this congressional seat of District 6. There are 9 of us on the Republican ticket, 3 on the Democratic side. Makes you laugh when you think about it, but me as well. But it's been a great experience. Met lots of people. Takes in parts of 10 counties, It's a significant geography, and I'm not going to be shy tonight. I want your help. I need your support. And if you have an interest in getting in the loop and knowing more about what we're doing in the coming 4 weeks in particular as we head into May the 6th, I'd like you to get on my email list. And I won't pester you. I'll just give you information I think will be valuable to you. I'm going to leave this over here on the table. And I'll leave in a little bit, but please do fill that out. If you want to pass it around, that's fine. A couple of you can have a t-shirt. Boy Scouts, if you'll wear it, you can have a t-shirt, okay? Wear it proudly. Check with your parents, make sure they're cool with me, but other than that, get a t-shirt. If you need more, let me know, okay? Here's a business card. Go on my website today. An exciting new video, it's about 4 minutes, was released. If you're not a Facebook friend, you need to be a Facebook friend. We'll get you on our campaign Facebook page as well. I'd like you to find out what others have to say about me over the last 20 years. People who I've done life with, I've done business with, I've done ministry with, and I've done business at the county with. And I think you'll find, it wasn't scripted. Scott, it wasn't scripted. I didn't tell them what to say. I'm very proud and humbled by some of the things they said about me. And I think you'll find it's that kind of leadership is missing in Washington as it was missing in Guilford. And I'll make you proud, and I'll fight hard for your families and your children and your future generations of America if you give me that opportunity. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you, Tim, for the time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Thanks for what you do for our county. Speaking of thanks, Phil mentioned earlier, it's great to have former Mayor Mark Brown here tonight. Always makes me nervous when he shows up, so it's great to have you here. Barry Wesley.
Thanks, Tim. Barry Wesley, 8208 William Wallace Drive. Proud father of 5. We've lived here for about 8 years. I've got 1 at UNCG, 2 in high school, 1 in middle, and 1 in elementary. My real job is I'm a private label consultant for Lowe's Foods out of Winston-Salem. But the job that I love to do, the one that pays the bills, is that one. The one that I love to do is I'm vice president and a board member of Summerfield Recreation Association. I've been a board member for about 6.5 years, and recently took over as vice president of baseball this past fall. And I've been working with Jeff Ford, and most recently met with Tim and Scott this week to talk about the relationship. We have gone from, just in baseball alone, 507 individuals, softball and baseball, playing in the fall to almost 700 this year. And the reason we did that was because of the passionate directors that are under me that run each league. So in baseball we have 6 divisions, in softball we have 4. We also have basketball, and we also have cheerleading. And the reason we grew and the reason we got there is for one reason and one reason only. It's for the kids. Everybody, some of these guys don't even have kids playing. They just do it because they're passionate about the sport. They want to dedicate their time, and they want to dedicate their ability to teach to these kids. So I think there's been a little bit of a disconnect between the town and Summerfield Recreation Association. And we want to close that gap and make it a win-win-win situation for all. We have some great events going on at the school. We plan to participate in Founders Day. I'm asking for at least 300 to 400 kids to march in the parade, as well as hold a pitch, hit, and run contest that we'll sponsor and give out trophies. We want to come together because I think we need each other in order to have a successful program. And I think we have some really good ideas. We have 60 sponsors. Most of them are local businessmen, and they also coach as well too. So we've got some really great connections within the community. And I feel that there's opportunities for us to help the town with the field and generating some revenue, areas that we found work well for us. And I think that there's the ability for us to work better. Jeff and I have had a great relationship, and we've really come together and had an understanding of where we are now and where we need to get to. So our goal is to get to 1,000 kids playing in Summerfield Recreation Association baseball and softball, to improve the basketball program, and to, along with that, the cheerleading program. So I just wanted to introduce myself, let you guys know that I'll be working with Jeff and Scott and Tim if necessary to solidify that relationship. And probably in June, I've been nominated as president of Summerfield Recreation Association. We haven't voted yet on that, so hopefully it'll get passed and I'll go on to that next role. And I've got 2 guys that I want to bring on to the VP. So that's it. Just wanted to say hello and introduce myself, and I'll let you know that we're looking forward to a great season with now that the snow and rain have gone. And I hope to see you guys. And if you're available on May 3rd, to come out and come out to the fields. We're going to have a big event there, and we'll be there on Founder's Day as well too. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Barry. It's great to have the opportunity to meet with you this week, and it's exciting. It's exciting to see the things you guys have going on. We appreciate all you do for our community. Did anyone else sign up on either the zoning or the budget sign-up sheet that wanted to make a public comment? Mr. Wendell?
I actually signed up on the wrong sheet, so you can scratch me off.
Okay.
What I got to say probably going to take about 30 seconds. I just want to remind everyone that May 6th is the primary, to kind of follow up with Jeff about the election and all that, but May 6th is the primary, and Friday is the last day you can register to vote in Guilford County. And I just wanted to share that. You go to the website, the Guilford County Board of Elections, for any information. If you haven't voted before or need more information, you need to go to the website. Everything is there. There's a lot of new laws been passed. And early voting will start soon, and it's all on there. But I just want, main thing I wanted to just express tonight is that Friday, this Friday, is the last day you can register to vote. If you don't register to vote by this Friday, you will not be able to vote in the primary election, which is May 6th. So I just want to share that.
Mr. Wendell, real quick before you go, because you have like 4 minutes left. Any update on the fraud?
I can't address that right now.
Oh, you can't talk, I'm sorry.
But, yeah, I cannot address that. I say we, but being on the board there, we are waiting for the state to follow up with additional information. That's probably my best response.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else for a public comment? Mr. Williamson?
Did I sign on the wrong paper?
Yes, sir, but that's fine. You can come ahead.
What if Mark? If I might need that time, though. You know how I am.
He can have my 4 minutes.
No, they won't pass that. They won't give me 30 seconds. But anyway. What about that? Well, got my whole program messed up here. Ain't no worry. But we'll do the best we can. I'm Eddie Winston, live at 3901 Lewiston Road. And it's got me timed in now, so we're ready to go. I was going to talk about a lot of things tonight, but I read in the Northwestern Road that I think said we're going to hire 3 more employees in this state. Is that correct?
In this state?
No, in the town. The town was looking to hire 3 employees.
Not that anybody here knows about.
I read that wrong, and I apologize. I was thinking, if we're going to hire 3 more, we got a real problem.
Problem alleviated.
We're going faster than we need to.
No question.
I took that out of context, I'm sorry, I might have been reading about somebody else. But anyway, they got that straightened out for me. I don't have any problem there. As I was coming in tonight, another thing came to my mind, I passed these ball fields up here. You know, several years ago, all I heard was, we gotta be a ball field for the kids, we gotta be a ball field for the kids. We've got a ball field. Kids are still playing when I said they'd play then, out of our schoolhouse. So, I'll go back to the trails on that deal, because I think it's gonna be a waste of money to put these trails in. I just don't think it's gonna be used to benefit the community. And we started out in this community, it's gonna be real simple, we're gonna keep it all just like it was yesterday, but we knew it wasn't gonna stay that way. But we just tried. And we got the old town hall, Danny Nelson, Mr. Tesh went fire, and they put their time, money, equipment, and there was other volunteers, but those 2 I remember real well because every time he was there, they was there. And they put us a nice facility, a whole lot better than starting out on top of the fire station. A lot of people don't even remember doing that, but I do. And we come up here to meetings and everybody just kind of visited with each other, you know, it was not really that great a thing, you know, we just had a good time. But boy, it sure did change. About 96, 2004, we had it made. Everybody just kind of, just got together, no big problems and nothing. It probably happened a little bit before 2004 because a lot of us just didn't come back every week or every month as it goes. And let things get by us, and now we come to the meetings. And it was in the Northwest Suburban, and I know I ain't missed this, why the numbers go up and down at different times of the meeting. Why we have more people sometimes and less people, and how the numbers grow and how they fall back off. That's not exactly the way it was wrote, but it was in there that the numbers in the town meeting have went up. The reason for that is because the people in the community got tired of what's going on. It's just like in 2004. Son, you couldn't even get a place here. You stand out on the porch. Because the people didn't like what was going on. And so I just think we don't need to turn it back here. We need to kind of listen to what people are saying. And let's wait a while. Let's don't rush into it. Because we had a big deal here in town one time before. We spent a tremendous amount of money on the substation / town hall. We paid for blueprints, we bought the property, we paid for the survey, and that's a lot of money we have spent. And we still got the land, and we probably still got the blueprint. But that's all we got, other than the bill that we got attached to it. And I just don't think we need to do anything. I think we need to kind of just lay low. And these trails are not going to keep themselves up. Because since we've been talking about them, and everything, I've got to look at every day when I ride down Old Oak Ridge Road, I look at that trail that goes, and I've even got my car and find out where it ended up. It starts over on Fleming Trace, it goes to Old Oak Ridge Road, goes over to Ballinger Road, and all the way over to Friendly Avenue. And it's a tremendous amount of upkeep. And I asked the guy, he said they have to go in there and mow all during the summer, and in the winter, they have to go over and pick up all the limbs and stuff. He said, it's a 5 or 6 man crew goes out and they stay all day. That's a lot of money. It ain't gonna be done with volunteers. So that's another expense we're gonna have. So as you can tell, I'm not back in the trades. So I'm just letting everybody know it's that guy I feel. And I would appreciate it if y'all would think about it. And I can't believe you didn't know about the bridge on Lunch Road. I just can't believe it. Because I know that was in the Northwest Suburban on Thursday. We left that here on Tuesday. So I just can't believe you didn't know about that. And I don't want us to fall into the same old deal. I don't want it to be like this Obamacare was, as Nancy Pelosi said, we've got to pass it before we can find out what it's going to cost. I definitely don't want us to go into something else like that. That's been a real fiasco. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson.
Mr. Mayor, if I could respond to just a couple of things.
Sure.
Mr. Williamson, before you leave.
I'll be here a while.
Okay. Just a couple of things in reference to the bridge. That is, you saw the article in the Northwest Observer, and that bridge, just a clarification for the public. There is a proposed footpath to go across that bridge, and it's really related to a separate greenway, proposed greenway, and not the one we're talking about, but it's really close. But the other thing I wanted to respond to just quickly is something I wish I'd responded to you last month when you brought it up. In reference to, you had made some comments about being visited by our code enforcement officer, and and you thought maybe that was connected to you speaking out the month before on the nuisance ordinance.
No problem.
Well, no, I just want to clarify that because that does sound pretty damning. Our code enforcement officer, as you know, is contracted, had no idea you'd spoken out about the public nuisance ordinance. So it was really just in response to your ongoing case that he's been working with you for some time. He was just doing a routine visit, and the second person that came out with him was just a trainee that's been shadowing him for some time. So I just wanted to be clear, I didn't want you to think we were targeting you in any way. So,
Well, this is how you brought that up. I cut down on my property taxes because I got rid of 2 in the last 2 weeks. So I'm working on y'all saving me money.
Thank
You just don't realize it.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. Any other public comments? Anybody been omitted? If not, we'll move to our public comments concerning the fiscal year 2014 and 2015 budget. We'd ask you, if you would, please, to limit your comments to 5 minutes. Just begin with your name and your address, and then you can share with us what you'd like. Dwayne Crawford.
Wayne Crawford, 1106 and C Highway 150 West. This is a repeat from what I stated last month. I think it's important to bring up again. We put over $1 million out here. The property we don't even own. The meeting room right here has been serving the town very well since I had done it in 2002. A few times it's exceeded its occupancy, but it's met our needs very well. You know, it still can take a little more expansion in terms of people coming in. I think, even though we don't own this building, it is a community center. It is maintained by volunteer groups, and they do their best to keep it up with the revenue they get. But air conditioner finally came on. But I think the air conditioner, the heating could use a little improvement. The lights could use a little improvement. Not replacing family. Yeah, bring it up to date. I don't think it's going to cost nearly as much as it's going to cost to revamp the Gordon building. $20,000, $25,000. And we could have a first-class meeting room in here, I think. And if my numbers are off, even $50,000 is a tremendous cost savings over revamping the Gordon building. So I wish you'd consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Any other comments on the budget? I want to leave anybody out? Okay. Then we'll move on to our committee reports, and we'll begin with finance.
The finance committee did not meet in March. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 21st at Town Hall at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Witt. Historical?
Our next meeting is scheduled for April 24th at 7 at the Town Hall.
Public safety?
We are meeting April 16th on a Wednesday at 5:30 at the Sheriff's Department here in Summerfield.
Thank you, Mr. Wendelken. Trails and open space? I don't see Paul.
He's not here this evening. Wanted to let everybody know that that has been rescheduled for 2 weeks from this Wednesday night. So it will be April the 23rd at 6 o'clock at Town Hall.
So it will not be tomorrow night?
Right.
Okay. Founder's Day?
Founder's Day, we're continuing to make progress. We continue to meet very regularly, the committee, and working out a lot of new details with the change to the athletic park. I'd like to thank our police department for really helping us with some of the logistics about public safety, and our public safety committee will be specifically looking at our public safety needs at their meeting that's coming up on April the 16th.
Police meeting, Lieutenant Piner. Sheriff's Department. Thanks, sir. On another note on Founder's Day, it's really exciting. I think we are scheduled to have Howard Coble and Linda Shaw as our grand marshals for the parade this year. I think that's really neat since they're going out in service, last year's service. So they'll be our grand marshals for the parade. Okay. Item number 9 on the agenda is public hearing for action regarding rezoning case for RZ 0114. Applicants are Walter and Linda Properties, LLC. Property location is 6143 Lake Brant Road.
Okay, this rezone is outlined fairly detailed level in your packet, and simply going to recognize our interim planner, Julie Reed, to present that case.
Folks have had a chance to see this and alternative, so you can also see it.
It's the same that's in your packet as far as the graph.
The property in question is just south of the intersection of Highway 150 and Lake Brant Road. Originally, this piece of property was zoned agricultural. The owner then decided to develop this property. The current zoning is a CURS 40, which is a zoning classification used for subdivisions. Then, of course, the economy kind of went south, And we added watershed regulations, not that we wish to, but because the state made it. But anyway, so we added watershed regulations, and that made this impossible to happen. And in the meantime, this gentleman has had to pay taxes on this raised value based on its potential for development. In addition to that, he would have the difficulty qualifying for his bona fide farm status with this zoning classification. He has indicated that he is currently growing vegetables, that's his intent, and that going back to the zoning that was there originally, it fits more in line with the neighborhood that also has agricultural zoning. In our agricultural zoning, we have some goals, so to speak, and those include preserving and encouraging the continued use of land for agriculture and open space, discourage scattered commercial and industrial land uses, concentrate urban development in and around area growth centers, while preventing premature conversion of farmland to urban uses, which this would have been, and that is now not going to happen, and discourage any use which, because of its character, would create premature or extraordinary public infrastructure. So the overall density at this point with this new classification, instead of this 40,000 square feet, the ag extension requires 120,000 square feet, or roughly 3 acres. Again, we talked about the fact that there's most of the zoning in this whole area is agriculture. There are some higher density development that occurred before the watershed regulations went into place. There is private institutional, there's a church right across here. I spoke with 2 of the adjoining property owners, and they were very content with this going back to the use that the rest of them have in the neighborhood. All of the materials that were required have been submitted. It is compatible with our comprehensive plan. Those items that are in the purpose for the agriculture use are also built into our comprehensive plan that deals with the preservation of farmland and some of the more rural uses. So basically, what you have here is a piece of property that was zoned in one way. It was zoned to a much higher classification to produce subdivision. It's no longer possible to do so, which we're bringing back to its original zoning and more like its neighborhood lots. So I think that'll help. One of the things that I would like to address about it is these watershed regulations are protecting water supplies for cities downstream. But at the same time, it's doing something for us, and a lot of people don't realize this, is as we deal with some of these land uses and not covering quite so much land with buildings and cement and that sort of thing, we're also protecting our groundwater. And I'd be willing to bet that anybody in this room that lives in Summerfield uses well water. And so it's really important that we protect that groundwater. So even though this watershed regulation was designed to protect surface waters and the water that ends up in the lake and subsequently is used for them downstream, at the same time it's helping protect our groundwater. So it's a good thing. The zoning board did hear this case. They recommended that it be approved. It will be reverted back to the agricultural zone. I have some suggested motions for you here. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The applicant is here this evening, and also I'm sure the applicant can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Having heard the overview, we'll enter time of public hearing for those both for and against the rezoning. And we have one. I think it's Walter. Right. Yes, sir. Would you come up, please?
I'm Walter Lewis, 6143 Lake Grant Road.
Mr. Lewis, if you'd just like to speak, I'm guessing you're speaking for the rezoning. So if you just want to share.
I bought the property about 3 years ago, and I have no intentions to develop the property. All I want to do is build a house there and live there, raise vegetables. Fairly simple. I want to get it back to agriculture. Have no reason to have it zoned for RS4.
Okay.
I'll be glad to answer any questions that I can.
Do you envision at some point a truck farm of some kind where you actually retail sale vegetables from that location?
Not a large one. I may sell some vegetables, but it won't be a truck farm. I gotta learn how to farm first.
So that may be the judge of that.
But I like to raise vegetables.
It's a lot of work.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions from the council?
I have a question for Valerie. Were all the people that were notified, did they also get a list of the community uses when they were notified?
That did not go in the mail, but they were, I think it says on there that they can go to the website to get those uses.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
We have no one signed up to speak against the rezoning. Is there anyone that didn't get signed up? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing and ask for discussion from the town council.
I just want to say that I was at the zoning board meeting, and it was the fastest meeting I've ever had been to. There was no one there to speak for it or against it. We were in and we were out. My kind of zoning board meeting.
With that said, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve, move that the request for rezoning of RZ-01-14 from CU-RS-40 conditional use residential single family in the watershed 3 critical protection area, tier 4 to agricultural district in the watershed 3 critical protection area, tier 4 be approved. The request is consistent with the town's adopted comprehensive plan because policy area 3, community character of the comprehensive plan, and its approval is reasonable and in the public interest because as it is well fits within the policy 3-3.7 to help keep small family farms viable in our community.
Motion by Mr. Adams.
Second.
Second by Ms. Flowers. All in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. Okay, business from our town manager.
The first item, A, reduction in the Guilford County early payment tax discount rate. You have that in your packet, and you've seen the letter, which was a request for the public's benefit. This was a request from the Guilford County manager to reduce the rate, the early payment of your taxes, that discount rate, from 1% down to 0.5%. And this request came directly to the town, and the request was to ratify that decision. And if this council chose to do that, we would also need to approve, besides just approving the reduction, we'd also need to revise the resolution that we have in place related to that. And just to give you a little bit of history there, it was proposed to be 2% back in 2004. Not all of the municipalities went along with that at the time, and ultimately it ended up at a 1% rate, and it's been that since 2004. And so the request again is to reduce that another 0.5%.
Okay, discussion?
We don't really have a choice, do we? I mean, they're going to reduce the rate to 0.5%, whether we vote for it or not.
I think it's an interlocal agreement, correct?
It
As
is.
such, we don't really, ratifying or approving is really, it's a foregone conclusion that we would, correct?
Well, and I'll let the attorney respond to that because we've had a similar situation in 2004. The question is, do we have a choice really, Bill, because it's an interlocal agreement, and what if we don't approve it? What if we don't go along with another 0.5% reduction in the discount rate?
Not sure why you wouldn't want to lower your taxes, but I think you would be stuck with that anyway.
It's not a lowering tax.
No, it's a reduction in the discount for early payment.
Pay early.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily lowering tax.
It's not low.
Yeah, if you pay early, then it's going to be lower. And I think that's going to be a county-wide provision.
Right, so in other words, this is just,
Still form.
So does this need to be in the form of a motion? Mr. Woodford?
One motion to approve it and
To
to
adopt.
revise the resolution to be sufficient.
And we
I
drafted.
apologize for my phone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill.
We drafted that resolution so you would have it before you consider beforehand, in case you did want to do this.
So make a motion to approve
To approve the reduction and to
reduction.
revise the resolution if that's what you want to do.
Okay.
second.
Motion by Mr.
Do
McClellan.
I need to,
Second by Ms.
specifically say it like that?
I
So
think you need
make a
to say
motion.
both unless you want to do it separately, it would be sufficient to do both at once.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the reduction to 0.5 for the discounted rate and revise the resolution as has been presented to us in our packet.
Motion by Ms. McClellan,
A second.
second by Ms. Laughlin. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, 3-2.
I didn't hear all opposed.
I'm sorry, opposed? 3-2. Not a problem. Okay,
Okay, item B, council budget amendment number 6 for interim planning. This is for this fiscal year. This is a similar request that's come before you in relation to our contract for interim planning. And the request is for $12,000 to cover the expenses.
discussion?
And just to clarify where that would come from, the reason it requires a town council action instead of just a finance officer action is because that would be coming from another department. It would be coming from the money that we have after the town hall repairs, because they were ultimately so much less than we budgeted for. So there's funding there to cover that.
You're just shifting from one account to another account, basically.
Right, exactly.
Question is, why did you have one budget amendment and consent agenda on this separate?
That's a good question. The answer is, if you go back and look at our budget ordinance, we have two different ways to do budget amendments. If they're within the same department and just moving line items, the budget ordinance gives the finance officer authority to do that. And so anytime we have one that's in the same category and fits that description, we do it, we report it the same way, but we put it in the consent agenda. With other budget adjustments, if they're going between departments, the ordinance specifically says that requires town council action. And so we do this real consistently. You'll see this in the future. Finance officer budget amendments in the consent agenda, town council always required action down in the body of the agenda.
This is, this $12,000 is for planning through to June,
No, through the end of April, basically.
through the end of April.
March, we have a payment for March.
Right, March.
So
We get billed at the end.
So, are we going to have another budget amendment at the next council
We
meeting?
anticipate having someone in that position and this getting us through to that point.
Further discussion? Hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the budget amendment number 6 for interim planning.
Motion by Ms. Barnes,
Second.
second by Mr. Adams.
I just have one more question, I'm sorry. So if we don't approve it, what happens?
We have a problem paying for Infocus for that particular part of the contract. We've contracted to pay them for an hourly rate, and that's what we've been doing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, 4-1. Motion carries.
The next item, 10C, Public Safety Committee request regarding town water needs. Just to kind of summarize this, you go back to January 9th, we had a meeting, a special call meeting, and at that meeting, one of the things, among other things that we were doing, was hearing a presentation by our fire department, and it was a presentation about their process and challenges of fighting fire in Summerfield with no municipal water. And part of the conversation was that they have decreasing water points or areas, ponds, sources that they can go to when they're fighting a fire to fill the trucks and ultimately to fight fires. And some of the things that were talked about at that meeting that night were, it was primarily geared toward just fighting fires and not so much about municipal water. And some of the things that were discussed were potentially looking at maybe water towers or things that could improve the fire protection situation of Summerfield citizens. And that evening, combined with some recent discussion in the Public Safety Committee along those lines, has generated a request specifically from the Public Safety Committee to Town Council. And the request is basically just for a plan of action of is the Town Council, is the town interested in looking at water-related issues? And that's, I say that pretty generically. It's not a push towards municipal water. It's just a conversation or a request specifically of whether or not we're interested in looking at anything in terms of fire protection, and whether or not we would be interested in looking at the feasibility of some sort of public water supply for Summerfield. There was the past water feasibility study that was talked about a little bit at the January 9th meeting, and there's been interest in from the Public Safety Committee of updating that potentially just to see what our options are. And so the request specifically was that the committee would like to basically hear from Town Council by its next meeting. And I promised to bring that request to you. And I think that's enough of the intro.
Okay, as a point of discussion, during that January 9th special call meeting, there was also brought up the insurance rating that Summerfield enjoys at this time, and it's a scale. And our scale, where we place ourselves, is at a number 6, and a number 1 would be best premium for fire insurances. And that being at a number 6 puts us at the ragged edge of whether or not we would be impacted by increasing our fire protection insurance. And that, just keeping it in mind as the citizens, you all need to be aware that that's a very important thing for us to keep that rating as good as we can, closer to 1, as opposed to getting higher than 6. So,
Thank you, Mr. Bass.
fire protection obviously is the key for all.
I don't think we've ever been in one.
We have not, didn't say that, we were, the chief told us that we were 6 at that time at the rating, and that rating is really not a great rating, actually.
But just to understand, this was brought to us from the Public Safety Committee about public safety. So this is more about water for fighting fires. Is that correct?
Well, I think that's safe to say. I mean, that was part of the conversation, looking at the feasibility, and the reason I say that is because, well, if we were looking at it in terms of, let's say, updating the feasibility study and looking at more municipal water options, that obviously is ultimately the same thing that plays into fire protection. That's specifically the concern there is fire protection.
What this says is Donald Delkin proposed looking at water issue to the town council with a fire safety approach. And the request is that the town provide an update of any forward progress on town water issues. And we haven't had any forward progress on town water issues as far as I know. So what exactly is it that they would like?
The request is they felt like the conversation had been opened up about water issues in general. We haven't updated the past feasibility plan. A lot has changed since then. And then we had this discussion presented by the fire department of their challenges with decreasing water points and what that means in terms of how effectively they can fight fires. So again, the request is a pretty generic one. It's specifically any progress on any of that. And let me correct something I said about the April meeting. That's what they had said originally, but they're taking up Founder's Day stuff, topics. So May, as long as they had some kind of response, they just want to know if there's any interest in looking at any of it from the town's perspective.
And let me point out in paragraph 2 of this request, it points out that the committee's request in general regarding water, but 2 different angles discussed were future municipal water exploration, updating the past efforts, and study in that regard. So it would be updating whatever there was in the past, whatever that might be. And or 2 is improvements in the town fire protection. So it's, actually I see it as 2 different approaches. We need both.
We've discussed municipal water once before, and we've had a lot of fireworks at that meeting. I don't think anyone is opposed to exploring improved water conditions for fire safety, like a water tower. But when you go to municipal water, it's going to be a hot topic. I don't think this room would hold all the people that will be here to discuss it.
And that's, I think municipal water certainly is a hot topic, no question about it. I think that municipal water could be perhaps a back seat to this discussion because there's other static type supply waters that could be used, as such as, Power says, water towers and things of that nature, that could serve well to fire trucks recharging their tankers. More proximity to the neighborhoods that they're going to have to be protected.
I think we had a discussion one time about the water, municipal water, and one of the companies that we were dealing with was Aqua, North Carolina. Yeah, and they were also dealing with Oak Ridge, and everybody said, let's wait, see what happens with Oak Ridge. And so that's kind of where we stopped it, so I think there's been some problems there.
There's still
so-
in litigation,
Yeah.
which after how many, 4 to 5 years?
Just for a point of reference, we have our Public Safety Committee Chairman here, Mr. Mandel.
Chair.
Oh, member, sorry, member.
I just would like to mention that, yeah, on there, I had mentioned about fire safety, and personally, being on the committee, that was my biggest concern. After watching what the chief had shown a video, and you guys have all seen it, I thought it was really important to bring the conversation up about fire safety more construction going on, more commercial development going on, just combination of things. And that's where I personally thought, and I really was my drive was to, we need to bring the fire safety issue on this, because that's how I'm looking at it personally. Now, we all voted to move forward and get some feedback from the council. But at the same time, Chief Johnson, his video is very powerful in my opinion, and when all the work they have to go through to get water from different ponds, and then if the pond isn't at a certain level, they can't get water out of it. So if there is a major fire somewhere, they have to go all over and searching for water, so to speak. So our conversation in the meeting really was he could, help, they could help, everybody within who has a knowledge of the water points and so on and so forth, they could help do some research, find out what would best suit the fire department on that specific fire safety issue. That is my stand on it, and I know there's other information in there that was discussed by other members. But the biggest thing is pressing, I believe, is the fire safety issue. But as a committee, there was some other discussion, as you mentioned, Alicia and Scott, that you did mention that, well, since we're doing this, why don't we go further? And I personally would just like to, the fire safety issue is a big concern of mine, and that's what I was looking at. So I just wanted to share that, but there was other discussion that went a little further from what we had done before.
So can we not ask the fire department and Chris, the fire chief in particular, to get some information on the cost and the feasibility of a water tower? We have that empty lot that's standing there. It would be an ideal place for a water tower. And that's something to consider. I have no idea what they cost. I don't know anything about them, but I think the chief might.
What about a well? Can they draw from a well?
Few wells have enough.
They need head. They don't have
Because,
enough
well,
volume.
Diana brought up about, what about a well, and I know when the charter school was, they needed our land there, SAP, and they drilled some water for us, and we're not using it. Could that be a source for the fire department, since the well's drilled?
It's not potable water, so it doesn't.
Potentially, I mean, it's a strong well that just needs a pump, basically.
Right, a pump.
It's just tap.
That's
I
another
think
consideration.
I think we have lots of good options, and the chief certainly did a good job of presenting it to us, and the need. And we really, before now, haven't had a vehicle to be able to address the things that he suggested. So how would it be for us to say, yes, public safety, appoint them to work with the chief and come back with a plan as it would address public safety, not a municipal water
Yeah, I was
system?
gonna say, now, one of the things too about the municipal water thing, it had started out and, so many down this way and that way was just gonna get hooked right into water. And if you didn't hook in within a year or something after that, you had to pay for it. And, folks didn't like it.
Yeah, and that's not what we're talking about.
One of the only things that I would say is that I think that having the Public Safety Committee have a clear direction as to what their objective is to come back to the council with. So I think that would be to give us options, and I think all options should be explored. Static supply well, which fills up a tank somewhere perhaps, but from a water tower perspective, it's a great idea. If it's logistically placed in such a way that it can get to the outskirts of our 25-mile square township, and the tankers can get there and put a fire out at the very edge of our town. So maybe we need to know strategically where to place these tanks.
Instead of putting a sign in the middle of the road that says, "Welcome to Summerfield," you could put a water tower that says, "Welcome to Summerfield," up on 220 at the beginning of,
I have no idea who said put a sign in the middle of the road.
Yeah, I don't either, but I think it's a great idea.
Thank you for your suggestion.
It's a great
Any
idea.
other discussion?
Except unless your home, again, is at the far side of town, they just have to call their
and
tankers
then
come up.
nobody has a lot to do.
So really,
A lot of options.
Right.
again, what the committee is, what their desires are is just to know, how we're gonna move forward with the discussion. Should they stop talking about it, or is there interest in any direction? And if so, Do you want to direct them, or do you want to do something else? They just want to know, where do we go from the conversation?
Well, I think we need to know what they want, I guess. So I think everybody's in favor of helping the fire department meet the needs of fighting fires. Absolutely.
Chair recognizes Mr. Crawford. Yes, I'm saying.
Actually, that's the direction I was getting ready to go right there. We don't want to be premature and say, oh yeah, we want to build a water tower to help the fire department. They need to produce something that gives us an idea of what exactly we have and what we need and what the possibilities are before we start directing a tower study or pumping volumes and all that.
One of the sentences here said Chief Johnson would like to convene the water committee as a subcommittee of the public safety committee to examine this critical safety issue. So
That's a good idea. Then you get
Well, it is
people that are
Do we need a motion to that effect?
To form a new committee?
Well,
Or
a subcommittee
a
of the safety, the public safety committee.
That's
Well,
what
that's
I
why there's no
don't
reason why they
understand.
couldn't.
Instead of a subcommittee.
As long as we gave them clear directions as to what to do as an outcome coming back to the council.
Mr. Crawford?
I still think the fire department needs to produce something other than we think we need, which is kind of what we have. We had videos and we think we can improve things. No, there needs to be something a little more substantive there that,
Mr. Wendell?
I just want to clarify some of this, because part of the conversation also was, what do we do if we did move forward? A subcommittee from the public safety of those who are familiar with it from the past, as far as points of where you can get water points at. Based on that, there would be something to that effect. Now, there's one thing that hadn't been mentioned here this evening. You would have to get somebody to go do some research that's going to cost money. Now, that hasn't been brought up. I want to bring it up now because that is something that will probably impact it somewhat. I don't know how much or what, but to find somebody, an engineer maybe or somebody to deal with the water, I don't know. But it's kind of we're hitting an area where I'm not familiar with everything, but I just know there's we kind of feel like there's a need for fire safety, but we want to approach it slowly. But there's probably some cost in it if we have to get somebody to do the work and get the ideas out there.
Yeah, but I still think the public safety committee could scope that out and come back and say, we've uncovered this group that we'd like to.
I agree. I just wanted to share that so there was no misconception of what's involved in that.
Great,
Don't
thank
forget we
you.
have that well at SAP that we're not using.
Ma'am?
It's not even drilled.
No, I think part of it too, earlier when we were talking about water issues, it's a matter of getting the fire trucks because of all the constructions and new developments since like early 2000s, is getting the fire trucks to the lakes, and that's the problem. You know, so I don't know if they can just drive up down there to the school and load up and you know.
They have to be within 30 feet, and that's the challenge of getting within 30 feet. And it's a lengthy process.
I'm talking about reloading, getting the water on the truck.
That's what it means. It has to be 30 feet from the truck to a hose down to the lake. That's the problem where many of the lakes are available, they're just too far a distance.
Yeah, because I live on a lake and I asked the chief about using it and they couldn't get the truck to the lake to put out my fire if I had one. So they have to be within a certain distance.
So here's a suggestion. It would be a sufficient response to go back to the Public Safety Committee and to say, if you are, we are interested in water from a fire protection standpoint, and we would like you as the full Public Safety Committee that's already formed for this purpose to simply come back to us within a certain time frame with a recommendation or a proposal of how to proceed. The committee can decide how much detail it wants and how much effort it wants to put into that, and it can simply bring you back a recommendation because that's its charge as an advisory recommending body. And that's an adequate response. It gives them an indication that if you are interested in that direction, and we can continue the process when they've got back with us with some ideas of how to go about it.
Mr. Director, would anyone like to make that motion?
We're going to need a motion. Is that required, or just a recommendation?
Direction. There's a couple of safety committee members here, we don't need a motion.
Just consensus that that's what we'd like to have.
So we have passed.
You do not have to have one, you can if you want to, but the consensus is directly fine.
Okay, do we have a consensus? I think so.
Okay, Don?
Thank you.
The next item, reports, updates, and comments. In reference to the Uniform Development Ordinance rewrite, we now have all the text drafts for one focus. The attorney and I still have work to do to get that draft finalized, to be able to turn that over to you and to schedule a public hearing for that. And we also had the zoning board and board of adjustment training a week before last with the School of Government's David Owens. I think that was really helpful for those in attendance. We passed that out, provided that to all of you, just the materials that were used and discussed that night. And hopefully we can do more of that in the near future. It seemed to be well received. In reference to Parks and Recreation, I've mentioned an RFP going out for our lawn care maintenance. We're close to getting that out. We've had to regroup a little bit because of the Gordon property purchase. That will involve some mowing related to that property, and so we've had to rescope that particular thing.
Could you explain, I thought we were going to consolidate all the contracts for mowing.
We are. The RFP is for all of the mowing and landscaping, cleaning. It's for everything together, just like we planned. The only exception, which has always been an exception, is the fields, the athletic fields themselves, that we're doing in-house internally. That's the real REEL mower, yeah. And so we're getting close on that. Just briefly, because I feel like some of you were here about the trail, and we've heard some about that tonight. Just wanted to kind of give you the pulse of I think, this council in terms of, we're hearing a lot of feedback, obviously. And I think there is some unsettledness, obviously, about trails, about what that means about trails versus a larger, more complicated greenway. And just to let you know, people are hearing you. And even with the Trail and Open Space Committee, there's been a lot of really good feedback. And the process is going to be that we're going to have a public hearing and find out that even though the comprehensive plan from 2010 says that we want trails and we want the greenway, this council wants to hear from you, wants to hear about, is that still valid? And in terms of specifically what's been proposed, well, that is a full-scale and expensive greenway. And I think this council wants to know if that's what is wanted and wants to hear the options. They want a lot of information. And, we do plan to go forward with the process of getting a price, the RFP process we talked about for design. But that doesn't commit this town to anything. Before this council decides where to go from there, we'll have a number for them to consider that design. But everybody wants to hear what the pulse of the community is on this, and just stay in touch. I mean, we've got the Trails Committee meeting in 2 weeks on Wednesday night, and when we get ready to advertise that public hearing, we'll do it not just a legal advertisement in the News and Record. We'll run some ads. We'll let the public know, and the message there is, if you care about trails, whether you don't like it, whether you like it, but you just don't want it in your backyard, whatever your opinion is, we'll have a large meeting and hear from folks. And I think that's government working. And that's my message on trails tonight.
Thanks, Mr. Butler. Any other reports, updates, comments?
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Okay, business from the mayor and council. We have these proclamations, and I'm sure people get tired of hearing me, so I've asked a few folks to read them. Mayor Pro Tem Barnes will read for us the National Volunteer Week.
Proclamation for the National Volunteer Week. Whereas a basic ingredient and the foundation of this nation is the voluntary acceptance of initiative and responsibility by private citizens and voluntary organizations, a fact largely responsible for the progress and development of our great country. Whereas many citizens of this community contribute to the well-being of fellow residents and the welfare of our citizens by giving tirelessly of their time and energy to make a real difference in the lives of children, adults, and the elderly, without desire for recognition, remuneration, or personal gain. Whereas for many years, these individuals and organizations have worked quietly, often unnoticed and unappreciated by the general public. And whereas since 1974, the United States has celebrated National Volunteer Week every third week in April in order to recognize the contribution of our amazing volunteers. Now, therefore, the Town Council and the Town of Summerfield proclaims April 6th through 12th as National Volunteer Week and give recognition and appreciation to all volunteers and urges all citizens to be aware of the contributions made by our committees and volunteer workers and to give recognition to these individuals and organizations for their valuable contributions in the quality of life in our community. Proclaim this the 8th day of April, 2014.
Thank you. Certified Public Accountant Week.
Whereas the physical health and well-being of Summerfield citizens, businesses, and institutions is critical to the continued vitality and prosperity of the town, and whereas certified public accountants have achieved the education and professional experience requirements to become licensed and pass rigorous uniform CPA examination, and whereas CPAs must uphold high standards of ethics, professionalism, and knowledge by maintaining and enhancing their skills through lifelong continuing professional education and provide valuable accounting and auditing services, management advisory services, individual and corporate tax and financial planning advice, and countless other services. And whereas CPAs continuously draw upon their unique knowledge and experiences to provide sound, reliable financial counsel in order to protect and promote the growth of business, the soundness of government operations, the excellence of higher education, and the confidence of investors of the town of Summerfield, the state of North Carolina, and throughout the United States of America. And whereas it is fitting to recognize CPA's contributions to the financial well-being and success of citizens and commerce in the town of Summerfield and across the nation, and now therefore the Town Council of Summerfield proclaims the week of April 6th through April 12th, 2014 as Certified Public Accountants Week, and further extend appreciation to our town finance officer, Katrina Witt, and to all CPAs for their vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication, and encourage the community to join us in this recognition proclaimed the 8th day of April 2014.
Thank you, Ms. McClellan. Thank you, Ms. Witt. And then the National Day of Prayer, Ms. Laughlin.
The proclamation name is National Day of Prayer. Whereas civic prayers and national days of prayer have a long and venerable history in our constitutional republic, dating back to the First Continental Congress in 1775, and whereas the Declaration of Independence, our first statement as Americans of national purpose and identity, made the laws of nature and nature's God the foundation of our United States of America, and asserted that people have inalienable rights that are God-given, and whereas the Supreme Court has affirmed the right of state legislature to open their sessions with prayer, and the Supreme Court and the U.S. Congress themselves begin each day with prayer, and whereas in 1988, legislation setting aside the first Thursday in May in each year as the National Day of Prayer was passed unanimously by both houses of Congress and signed by President Ronald Reagan. And whereas the National Day of Prayer is an opportunity for Americans of all faiths to join in united prayer to acknowledge our dependence on God, to give thanks for blessings received, to request healing for wounds endured, and to ask God to guide our leaders and bring wholeness to the United States and her citizens. And whereas it is fitting and proper to give thanks to God by observing a day of prayer in Summerfield, where all may acknowledge our blessings and express gratitude for them, while recognizing the need for strengthening religious and moral values in our state and union and nation. Now therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Summerfield proclaims the first Thursday in May 2014 to be designated as a day of prayer in Summerfield, North Carolina, and encourage the citizens of Summerfield to observe the day in ways appropriate to its importance and significance. Proclaimed this 8th day of April 2014.
Thank you, Ms. Laughlin. And then the Municipal Clerks Week, Mr. Adams.
Municipal Clerks Week, whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And the office of municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants. And whereas the office of municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas the municipal clerk continues to strive to improve the administration of the affairs of Office of Municipal Clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, province, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is with much appreciation that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Summerfield proclaims the week of May 4th through May 10th, 2014 as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extends appreciations to our municipal clerk, Valerie Howerson, and to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent, and encourage the community to join us in this recognition. Proclamation, this the 8th day of April 2014.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. It is worthy to note, we thank you also, Ms. Howison, for your years and years of valued service.
Probably the finest town clerk in all the country.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Give her a round of applause.
I think so, yeah. Okay, on the, any other reports, updates, or comments before we move ahead?
I just want to say, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, glad we're going to get the opportunity, some of the council members have volunteered to read to some of the students at Summerfield Elementary School, and I think that's a great honor, and I knew we had done it in the past, and I hadn't heard it for a while, so I'm real glad to hear it. And also the zoning board and board of adjustment workshop, I was talked with Julie about that, and she was saying that she thought everyone attended that except one person wasn't able to come, and it was an exceptional training session, and I think it only cost us gas for David Owens to come. Is that
Right.
correct?
Is that it didn't have any cost?
It didn't. It's a pretty loose thing. He said if we could cover his travel up here, that would be sufficient. I think that's their norm with those kinds of travels.
But and I think it's good that you have that relationship for that to all happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laughlin.
That's
Ms. Flowers?
Yes, I have, I just want to comment that that training session was excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed it, learned a lot. And when is the next one?
Don't have a specific one planned yet.
I noticed in the budget we decreased the amount for training. I think we need to increase it. That's just my opinion. I have a question for the attorney, and I didn't want to bring this up at the zoning because I really have no objection to zoning back to agricultural. I think it's great. But according to the procedures for general purpose and conditional use rezoning, the applicant or their representative must be present at the public hearing. And there was a public hearing at the zoning board meeting, and there was no one there. The applicant is not present, neither were you. And so I just have a question about that.
Yeah, it should be present then. I conferred with the manager and the planner, and so I was needed at that meeting, so I was not present. But the applicant should be present, yes.
They weren't there. So I'm just bringing it up because I'm curious that it's in the procedures, and these procedures, I believe, are mailed to the applicant, but there was no one there to represent him. So, just for a point in the future.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else?
And I think it's been determined that our closed session is no longer needed.
We do not need a closed session, Mr. Hill.
No, sir, no, that's constituted.
Does anyone feel like we do?
No.
Okay, very good. Any other business? Any other business from anyone? Not? Someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Adams. Second by Mr. McClellan. All in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. Thank all of you for coming and for being here tonight very much.